Hello world, Omega here.
In this video, I will walk you through creating new equipment step by step using my Unreal Engine inventory system. Today we will turn our ham shank into a meat maul, a fierce one-handed melee weapon. Before you start this video, make sure you have completed the equipment pawn setup video and the how to create new items video. If you skip the pawn setup video, you will not be able to equip the meat maul. For this lesson, we will use the meat static mesh that is already included with the demo content. In the demo world, this mesh is used for all the different meat related items. If you do not have the demo content in your project anymore, you can follow along using any one-handed melee weapon or tool from your project. In the How to Create New Items video, we started an items folder. Now I will navigate to that folder and create a new subfolder called Meat Maul. Since we might remove the demo content later, let's make a copy of the meat static mesh and place it in our new folder. You can find the included static mesh, SM Meat, in the demo, items, cooked meat folder. Drag and drop the static mesh on your new folder. Use the advanced copy option. On the window that appears, select all the dependencies, then click OK to copy the mesh to your folder. Then rename the mesh to something different, like SM_meat maul. I have also prepared an icon for our meat maul equipment item. If you want to use the same one, you can find a download link in the video description. Download it now, then import the icon into your folder. Open the icon, set the texture group to UI, and set the compression settings to uncompressed. Save the icon, then close it. At this point, you should have the mesh and the icon ready for this equipment creation lesson. To create equipment, we need a record in both the items data table and the equipment data table. Think of equipment as an extension of items. Not every item is equipment, but every piece of equipment is an item. Because of that, we still need to add it to our DT items data table. Then we use the DT equipment data table to store the equipment specific data. Let's start with the item. We already covered item creation step by step in the How to Create New Items video, so I will move through it quickly here. If you have not watched that video yet, pause this one now and watch it before you continue. First, open the DT items data table in the Blueprints, Variables, Data Tables folder and add a new row. For the row name, use meat_maul, all lowercase. For item name, enter meat maul. For the description, enter a prime cut of violence that tenderizes skulls on contact. For flavor text, I'm going to enter every swing lands like a butcher's verdict. For the icon, select the one we imported. Set item type to equipment. Set item subtype to main hand. You can view the item type chapter to learn how to create additional types and subtypes. For quality, let's spice it up and set it to legendary. Next, under static mesh details, select the SM meat maul static mesh we saved to our new folder. Set the max stack size variable to 1, so it is a non-stackable item. Now let's add a damage stat to our weapon using the dynamic data system. Dynamic data is an advanced feature, but we can keep it simple for now, since the damage key is already set up for us by default. Add an element to dynamic data, then set the key to damage. One word, all lowercase. For the value, choose a number. I will set mine to 145. This looks good, so now we can move on to the equipment side of things. Items are considered equipment when the same row name for the item is also found in the DT equipment data table. That shared row name is how the two parts of the system link together. You can find DT equipment in the same folder as DT items, so go ahead and open it now. You should see all the equipment currently in your project, and each row includes variables that are specific to equipment. By default, the demo equipment will be here, like you see on my screen. I recommend leaving the demo equipment in the data table for now so you have examples to reference while you add your own. Next, add a new row to the equipment data table. For the row name, make sure it matches the row name you used in the items data table exactly. For me, that is meat_maul, all lowercase. The equipment slot decides where on our pawn the equipment will show. Since you completed the equipment pawn setup video already, your pawn should already be ready to equip main hand equipment. Set equipment slot to main hand for our meat maul. If you want to learn how to add new slots, check the equipment slots chapter of the documentation. We can leave the equipment slot index set to 0. This is used when an equipment slot has multiple possible locations on our pawn. For example, if you wanted the meat maul in the left hand instead of the default right hand, you could set the index to 1. Then you would need to use that index inside the pawn's getEquipTarget implemented function, so it returns the correct socket. This function was added during the equipment pawn setup video. For an example of it in action, look at the getEquipTarget function in the demo character in the demo folder, where the main hand slot uses this offset. If you plan to use animations to pose your pawn based on the equipment they are using, you can set a value in equip stance. Whenever equipment changes, the system adds up the equip stance values from each equipped item. The stance with the highest total becomes the current stance. That current stance is then sent to your pawn using the changeEquip stance2 implemented function added during the pawn setup. From there, you can save the value and use it in your animations. You can learn how to create more stances in the equipment stance chapter of the documentation. For this video, set equip stance to one-handed melee. Equipment handlers are how we add functionality to our equipment. Making your own equipment handlers is a moderate to advanced topic, so if you want to learn how they work, check the equipment handlers chapter of the documentation. To help you get started, I provided a handful of simple examples, including the melee one we will use in this lesson. Go ahead and set equipment handler to AC equipment handler simple melee. This handler gives you left-click and right-click input to control your swings. It also reads the damage value we added to the item's dynamic data. For the slower right-click swing, it multiplies that damage value by 2. Damage is also applied to the target you hit. If you like learning by digging in, I recommend taking a minute to open this handler and look through the code. It is a simple but powerful example. Next, we set the visuals for our equipment. You have 3 options: skeletal mesh, static mesh, or custom blueprint. Since we are using a static mesh, use the equip static mesh field and select your SM_meet Maul static mesh. For skeletal meshes, you would use equip skeletal mesh, and for custom blueprints, you would use equip other. Custom blueprints are an advanced option, but you can see an example with the flashlight from the included demo content. Equip input mapping context lets you add a new input mapping context with a very high priority while this item is equipped. This is useful when you need extra key bindings for a specific piece of equipment. You can also add input mapping context from inside your equipment handlers. The melee handler we selected already provides the primary and secondary key bindings for left click and right click swings, which it inherits from one of its parent classes. Because the handler handles this for us, you can leave equip input mapping context blank. Equip user interface lets you add a custom user widget to the viewport while the equipment is equipped. These widgets can also be added from equipment handlers, which is how the melee weapon shows the key bindings in the bottom right corner. Since our handler also already does this, you can leave equip user interface blank. When you inject a custom UI, you can also implement a blueprint interface in it that helps you get a reference to the equipment handler that created the widget. The documentation explains this, and the demo UIs include examples you can review. Next is enable mirroring. When this is enabled, the equipment visual is mirrored to extra locations you define in the getMirrorTargets implemented function on your pawn. That function was added during the equipment pawn setup. For this item, leave enable mirroring disabled. Enable leader pose binds this equipment to follow the animations of another mesh component on your pawn. You choose that mesh by returning it from the getLeaderPose component implemented function on your pawn. That function was also added during the equipment pawn setup. The equipment and the leader pose mesh must share the same skeleton, or it will not work. For this item, we can leave enable leader pose disabled. Last is equip relative modifiers. These modifiers are applied after the equipment is spawned, as additive values for location and rotation, and multiplicative values for scale. We do not need to change anything here. Since our pawn is already set up to support main hand equipment from the last video, we can jump straight to testing. Go to the Blueprints, Interactables folder, and drag the BP Interactable Item Pickup Blueprint into the world. Set its item row name to the row name you used for the item. For me, that is meet_Maul, all lowercase. Press play, pick it up, equip it, and try out the swings using left and right click. You should now have a fully functional meat Maul in your game. If you do not see the meat Maul in your pawn's hand, or if the swing animations do not work, review those parts of the equipment pawn setup video. In most cases, the issue will be somewhere in that setup. That is how we create new equipment in my Unreal Engine inventory system. Keep in mind, this video is just a primer, and there is a lot more you can learn and configure for equipment. I recommend spending some time with the rest of the equipment documentation to explore the other features. If you have questions while making your equipment and you cannot find the answer in the docs, feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your game.